Red one. 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 I don't know. It just got me to say that. I just came out from Red One, the latest movie starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Look, I always say it, I don't hate the guy, but the type of movies he's typecast and the type of movies he's involved, there is something magical that people tend to always say that, to kind of not being mean to him or not wanting to say this, because I don't know why, but I don't know why this movie is not getting the trashing that it deserves. Because, yeah, right on the get-go, I didn't like this movie. I didn't like it almost one bit. But it's a popcorn flick. It's still a bad movie. But it's fun, and look how good they look. It's still garbage. People, a movie shouldn't just be saying that it is good just by saying that it looks good and it looks cool and all that stuff, because this is technically very superficial. You're gonna say you'll say that it's subjective, but it's more superficial. And the biggest problem that I have with this movie is that this has probably been one of a very cynical way to approach a holiday that many people kind of cherish it as something that it makes you feel warm or something like that. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind something like, for example, Die Hard, but at least you have to make it up for it with something that makes you feel it. Or else you get kind of movies like that. And of course, a movie that I hated, the one that had Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell. I'm not gonna say exactly what it is because I have plans for that. But let's say that I saw that movie and I hated it. I'm not saying that I hated that. I hated Red One as much as kind of like that other one, but this movie is, how can I say it? It's like it took notes from Arthur Christmas, mix it up with Krampus, and not getting the point of what makes a good Christmas movie. Hell, I will take Deadly Night over this, because at least Deadly Night has some semblance of goodness and sincerity into it. This is just cynical cash grab that it looks like streaming service. So what? So what? It's still a cynical movie that you don't want me to go all out. Yes, there are some elements that are interesting, but still, I don't know. There's something disgusting that I have with this movie, that I don't think that I might gonna put it as one of the worst movies of the year, because I know that there are worse. But the best way I can describe this movie is that this is the type of movie that it was kind of like warned by Ernest Saves Christmas. It is the kind of garbage that Bill Murray from Scrooge is gonna approve. That's what I think about Red One. So let's get started. So this is technically one of those holiday action movies in which Santa Claus exists. Santa Claus exists, and well, he has his head. Santa Claus in this movie, he's played by J.K. Simmons. It's the second time J.K. Simmons plays Santa Claus, when he was doing a great Santa Claus in that amazing movie called Klaus. And in this one, yeah, he's a little bit kind of like buff, and he also have an assistant head elf, which with an elf named Callum Drift. He's played by Dwayne Johnson, of course. Well, I kind of struggles by saying that he's an elf because he doesn't look like anything like an elf. There's an explanation to that. It's actually an acronym. But they kind of have like this very, very action-packed approach to Christmas, and well, unfortunately, Dwayne Johnson is kind of like disappointed that the adults in this modern world are more cynical, are more mean-spirited, they're angry and all this stuff, and he's like, where are the children and all this stuff? And well, Santa Claus is like, well, you gotta see the children for themselves. If I still grow up, but I still do my job. And then, well, Santa Claus gets kidnapped. He gets kidnapped. Dwayne Johnson is on cahoots. He wants to save Santa, so he also has, the help from this organization called Mora. I don't remember the acronym, but it's basically kind of like this secret organization that kind of controls mythological beings, Santa Claus included, and its director is none other than Lucy Liu. And they find out that Santa Claus was actually captured by someone, which I'll get to that. And the one that made it all possible for his capture is a naughty guy named Jack O'Malley, or Jack the Wolf O'Malley, who is played by Chris Evans, who is kind of like in his list on naughty, level 4 naughty list guy, in which he's a gambler, he's a horrible father, he has his stuff, and well, since he basically was unintentionally responsible for the kidnapping of Santa Claus, they decide to attack him alone, and well, it kind of turns into this body cop thing, trying to find out where Santa Claus is. They kind of see the magic of this. The guy trying to learn his lesson about being kind of like more into the spirit of Christmas. Yeah. They find out that there's a conspiracy, and I just can't. I don't think that this movie deserves the hat, but I have to keep it. Jeez. Where do I start? For starters, I won't go soft on this movie like Double Toasted or any other who's saying that some people you might have to like it something because it looks pretty, so action packed, you're gonna get drunk. It's kind of like a dumb something. Okay, do what you will, but I'm not here. I'm not that kind of guy. When there's something that I don't like, I say it in their face, and I don't give a damn if I have to tell it to children, old people, or someone that treated me very well. If I have a problem, I better say it. Don't be a snowflake, or else there will be no improvement. Or you will basically, it's just a guy who is just a conformist. So let's get, but don't worry, I will find. There are a few positive things that I can say from this movie, but unfortunately, it's kind of like overwhelmed by some other stuff that undermines the whole thing. Because for one, I will say that if there's kind of like a silver lining of this movie, it's J.K. Simmons and Dwayne Johnson. I know that Dwayne Johnson is not the best actor in the world, and I know that he is the kind of guy who he's very picky, and I've been hearing rumors that he wasn't available to be on set for many times. So I'm like, he didn't care for the movie, but at least the way he and Santa Claus were written, at least you can sense that there is something that it should be worth writing about. But that is undermined by so much BS that it undermines the whole message that it wanted to be on this one. And like I said, these two are the only characters and the only moments in which you can see an ounce of sincerity on a Christmas that is just cold, just cold. Because honestly, there is something I like. The theme. I mean, Dwayne Johnson playing a character who is kind of like this macho guy, and he basically kind of lost hope on humanity because everything looks very, very cynical and it looks awful, and he just kind of lost it. And Santa is just like being still hopeful, and kind of like the jolly guy who actually willing to forgive. And this could have been the movie, but then they toss in, this kidnapping plot, and then this thing gets shoved aside because here comes kind of like the aspect I hated for this movie. And I'm sorry to say this, but Chris Evans, I hated him. I don't hate Chris Evans himself, but this movie made me hate him. I don't have, it's not him, but the problem that they wrote with the character, I know what they were trying to do, but this character was gonna be kind of like despicable, really despicable. I mean, we see kind of like his childhood that he wanted to show the whole hard truth to children that, okay, Santa doesn't exist, and he's just kind of like this mean kid. And then when he goes into adult, he's pretty much kind of like, let's say that is the kind of character that will make Nick Wilde from Zootopia go like, dude, that's too much. Even the big bad wolf from the bad guy will go like, dude, not cool. He's a total scumbag. He's a total jerk. And then he gets dragged on because, well, he unknowingly gives the enemy the lead to kidnap Santa Claus, which I'll get to that. But during the whole movie, it wanted to play out this buddy cop thing in a kind of almost like they wanted to emulate the worst aspects of a DC and Marvel superhero. And you can tell that because we got someone who was a DC anti-hero. We had Black Adam and Captain America, and of course, what was it? Johnny Storm. And his approach is so despicable that you just hate him. And you're gonna say, okay, that's how this character is supposed to be. I get it, but unfortunately, the movie tries so hard to find a likable side of this guy, but no, there's nothing. And even when he comes with, in his heel turn, it feels unearned, and he didn't get punished. It's just all shallow, really, really shallow, in which I felt no sympathy to the guy, even when when there are people kind of like pressure him, like his ex-wife who very pressure him to say, hey, you gotta be with your kid. Hey, you gotta be better with your kid. And his kid, in which apparently you say, oh, he's a good kid. And I was like, my good kid, my butt. We see nothing about this kid. This kid is a jerk, and he has a horrible attitude like this guy. And of course, you can tell that he's a horrible kid because he has this Gen Z hairdo that kind of makes him look like a reject of Stranger Things. He looks like a reject, kind of like a discount store Finn Wolfhard. And this kid they say that he's a good kid, but he acts like a jerk. He acts like a jerk, even in the very few minutes about it. And you know what? The movie even kind of justifies itself, in which the guy is like, I want to spend it with my kid, but I can't because all the, there's almost like no reason. And then he said like, it kind of like this bullshit BS story that I don't even get it, but he's just saying that, you know what? I think that this kid is better off with his new father instead with me and Eve. And I was like, yes, of course, you're a jerk. This is why, and jerks should stay away from children because they are bad influences. And the goals of this movie, that they had a good moral. They did say that the good moral is that we make the choices. Even the Santa Claus kind of say that humans are responsible for making our choices to be, naughty, good or naughty, and that. And honestly, it could have been good, but the movie makes it all the way to not earn it for what it is. This is what made the movie. And I don't know that this fact alone is what made this movie just legitimately piss off. And there's also and you know what, the Mora thing, with Lucy Liu, that in itself could have been kind of like its own story, its own movie, and it just felt a little bit kind of like shoehorned in, and well, I don't know. I guess it's kind of justified because they wanted to justify how things kind of exist. I mean, I can tell that there was something, but I can tell there was something kind of like interesting in it. Although most of the time it kind of remind me that there is some inspiration to Arthur Christmas. And you know what? I don't care which go, I spoil it or not. But you know what? Yeah. It showcases that the villain is none other than a witch. Just now that I see the IMDb, Bonnie Hunt played Mrs. Claus, and she's kind of like the youngest Mrs. Claus I have ever seen, although not in a parody way. She doesn't do much, but here it is, and all this stuff. And oh yeah, we got the villain. The villain is none other than played by Kiernan Shipka, who she plays a witch named Grilla, in which nobody is supposed to say her name, because whenever someone says her name, she basically listens, saying that, oh, I hear you, then I know where you are. So basically, she's Voldemort. She's technically Voldemort, and honestly, she doesn't have a terrible motivation. Actually, she has a good motivation, but I know that she's a little bit extremist. Because she's basically the Christmas witch, who she decides to get this magical crystal ball, in which she wants to give it to all the naughty people. I mean, no matter what rank, and she just wants to encapsulate them. Very yeah. Like Krampus. Like Krampus, that it captured them and put them in a crystal ball so they can stay forever. Well, apparently she's an extremist, that a well-intentioned extremist, that she hates, that everyone is being naughty, and she just wants to be, safe Christmas, in her own way, in which even for like jaywalking, she just wants to, encapsulate them and all this stuff. And of course, and like I said, she basically wants to make everyone belong on the plot of Krampus. Oh, and speaking of Krampus, he's in the movie. Krampus is played by Christopher Hivju, and he is played and of course he's basically his brother, who they don't get along and all this stuff. And you know what? Nothing much is kind of happening in this kind of case, that. And even there was kind of like a point in which Krampus kind of makes kind of a little bit of a heel turn, but the heel turn is useless. Useless because he shows up and nothing matters. It's only better only for kind of like a scene in which they just kind of make a slapping contest that it just that is kind of like a dare. I don't know. I don't remember what it's called, Krampus or something like that. But give me a break. Give me a break. It's just it's the characters suck. All of them suck. Well, again, except J.K. Simmons and Dwayne Johnson, because again, these are the guys who have a certain sense of sincerity, and even they didn't make a fact, there was this polar bear. That polar bear, he looks awesome, but they don't use him. There's these creatures that look like Star Wars creatures. Useless. You had the opportunity to build something, but we have to deal with over charismatic ex-wrestler and Mr. Asshole Captain America. But the Chris Evans just single-handedly made this movie all bad. It makes this whole thing, it looks cold. Oh yeah, like I said, this movie looks overbloated, with the CGI. And honestly, yeah, the CGI doesn't look bad. It looks at times it looks okay. It looks sometimes good, but you know what? In this day and age, that they're a professional and they can do anything. Although, yeah, it looks Christmassy, and I'm not gonna lie that the world looks good. It looks the world that Santa Claus plays. It looks awesome. It's like they made a live action CGI version of the world of Arthur Christmas, and the whole operation very Arthur Christmas in its own way. In its own way, and it looks awesome. That looks so awesome, but again, looking awesome doesn't excuse a poor script, and a poor script that it's just more substance. It's just substance for the sake of people looking good, and it looks cold, doing cold things. And then of course we get the action scenes that you can tell that is Marvel inspired, because Dwayne Johnson has this bracelet that it kind of does a lot of things. It is a communicator. It also turns toys into real life objects. Although it doesn't explain the rules about which one can do it and which one doesn't, especially because Chris Evans is like, hey. Can you do that with a Wonder Woman doll? No, it doesn't work that way. So why not? Why not? And it can even make fucking sucking robots come to life. And this thing also gives him powers in which Dwayne Johnson basically turns into Ant-Man. This movie, actually, you can feel a lot of inspiration from Ant-Man, because there's fight scenes that he can shrink, he can shrink and get back to normal size. He doesn't turn into a giant, but you can tell that it has Ant-Man powers. I wouldn't have minded that. It could have been a dumb movie, but and you know what? It is dumb. Probably just shut down your brain. Maybe you can find some semblance of entertainment into it, but at this point I'm just going with how cynical this movie felt. This whole and it's mostly because they were trying so hard to find some redeemability to the Chris Evans character. This is where I go with the theme that how this is all unearned. This character, he's shown up to be kind of like a jerk at the beginning, even as a kid, and then it stays like a jerk at the beginning. And when he kind of makes his heel turn, it just felt unearned. There's a reason, and the reason, and it feels so forced, and that even for even for something that you want to make it the basic as possible of a Christmas movie, even the most basic has some heart in it. But Chris Evans' character, no, has nothing. And his construction is not earned. It doesn't feel earned. It's just kind of like there, and his arc is shallow, is hollow. And when it comes to a moment in which it kind of shows that he just wants to make it kind of like a heel turn and all the stuff, it doesn't earn nothing because the guy wasn't punished. And the movie actually needed that. And honestly, that kind of makes me kind of side with the bad guy, the witch. And yeah, she was an extremist. And there's a reason why Krampus exists. Krampus exists to punish the naughty kids. And you know what? There's a reason why you can't be nice every single time. And honestly, you could have actually made a movie out of, finding, because in an angle, there's an interesting thing between Saint Nick and Krampus. Being brothers, that they don't get along, but then they both have to find out, that maybe sometimes you don't have to play both extremes. I mean, too nice or too lenient, to punishment. And yeah, we could the witch was kind of like an extremist, let's say, and we can agree with that. But you know what? This is the reason why we need people like Kira from Death Note. Although Kira, of course, at the end he kind of goes into it, but you know what? There's a moment that I can justify. I'm sounding horrible, but honestly, this movie makes me think on some other ways how to make it, kind of competent instead of, just let's say, okay, let's just make it Merry Christmas. And I don't have anything against it. But I still have to point out the problems that it has. I mean, look at me. I'm the guy who actually liked Die Hard, and I'm actually also the kind of guy who actually liked Give a Pass also, and like Deadly Night. Deadly Night. So this world, this is such a wasted opportunity in which you got the idea, but it was poorly executed. So I think I said my piece enough. So Red One, now that I think about it, it also really made me see red. But the worst Christmas movie that there is. And this is probably a one and never more. For at least for it is, but I will say that this was mediocre at best. It's not the worst Christmas movie there is. It's not the worst Dwayne Johnson movie that there is. Maybe I could say this is probably one of the worst Chris Evans portrayals I have seen. But, well, what do you expect from Red One? A very cold, cynical movie that, well, it deserves its punishment, and it received level 4 naughty coal.